Welcome to Dead Headspace. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined always by my co-host, Brennan LaFaro. Say hi, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
Today we are talking to a author slash anthologist, amongst many things, Mark Matthews. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
And let's get down to the dark side of you, sir. What got you into horror?
Well, I grew up watching it, like probably most of us, and we all grew up in different eras, though. But mine was a Night of the Living Dead time. You know, that was a big deal. It came out at 11:30. Watched the Ghoul, and I tried to stay up. And my brother is deceased now, but he got me into horror largely, and took me to see all the slasher movies, the Halloweens, and we'd watch the Phantasm, and we'd analyze it and go over the scenes over and over again. And I just love the creativity of it, and kind of like the social transgressiveness of it, so to speak, meaning the way it looked at mores and norms. And you know, I think I was and this probably holds true today, I was a scared little boy. And so when I watched horror, I'm like, that's me. I'm that scared little dude, you know, who maybe the parents don't talk to them, so don't know what's going on. And there's monsters after him. And so I could relate to the characters I saw. I have a visit by the cat.
not a first guess to have that either.
No.
Yeah, that I can totally relate to that, man. Like horror scared the hell out of me. I remember Spencer's store. I go in there and I'd always see this like life-size Chucky, so you know, nothing big, 3 feet, whatever. And it would just creep me out. And eventually I watched the entire series. Oh, hey, super random, but I love that shirt, by the way. The girl with the dragon tattoo. Okay,
yeah,
that's it. I didn't know if that was the other book, the sequel.
Oh, no. Well, there's a 3 of them, but I think the last one was written kind of by a poser. I refused to read it just because I don't want to like it. Story behind this shirt, I literally got it in Denver at Boulder's Books. And the day before, I was on a character panel at StokerCon, and everyone's like, actually, I moderated. So my question was, pick one fictional character that really sticks out to you that you just like, wow. And I picked Elizabeth Salander, and because she is, you know, and then next thing you know, I saw this shirt and I'd never seen it before. So I figured it was a sign by the gods that I had to get it. And so
that's pretty awesome. Like I see the book all over the place, but I don't see merchandise for it.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
I should tell your audience that I've been pretty sick all week. And so my voice is jacked up and I might be coughing and drinking water and stuff. And I've tested negative for COVID 3 times. I tested right after StokerCon because a few folks had it and was negative. And then I started getting a sore throat and I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. But then I tested 2 more times and both times negative. And
I'm really glad to hear that. I saw that Mallerman, I just saw it recently today that he said that he had it.
Yeah. Well, he had it well before. Actually, I ran into him this weekend. His band was playing down the road, the High Strung.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of you guys that are in that general area in Michigan, right? Isn't I could be way off base. I don't know my geography of Michigan super well, but isn't Chad Lusky near you guys too?
He's more in Grand Rapids, but he is in Michigan. I think Philip, I forget how you say his last name, Fracassi.
Yeah.
I think he is from the area. Kathy Koja is from the area. Thomas Ligotti, who I don't think lives here anymore, but he grew up, I think, largely in Detroit.
That's pretty cool. Brendan, you want to go back to the earlier stuff? Because I feel like...
Well, first off, I'm just thinking you guys are second only to Pennsylvania as far as horror writers per capita. I'm actually really interested in the idea of younger Mark rehashing and analyzing, you know, different scenes. I'm curious, what did you... I guess it's 2 separate questions. What did you hope to learn at the time, and what did you end up taking away from that you might still use today?
You know, and when I mentioned that about analyzing scenes, well, both of these are similar scenes. They're where you think you're safe, but you're not. And at the end, after you've gone through the ordeal, because the monster has to be scary through the ordeal and trials and tribulations, and you got to prove you're worthy, and you know that the final boy girl, that's all changed. But the scene with the cat's coming. The scene with shit, what's his name? And Phantasm, the monster guy.
Oh, isn't it just a tall man?
Yeah, the tall guy, the tall man. When he's in the mirror and he's like, "Boy."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they got some really neat shots in that too.
Yeah, that scene. Cat's showing up as one eye, right? That scene just blew me away, and I think similar to the scene where Michael Myers is gone from the lawn, and because I think that is we're never really safe. We maybe survived the ordeal, and we maybe grew stronger because of it, and that's why I like. What did I learn? I like stories that end when they're not over, or don't have a final ending to them, where something is still happening and maybe ambivalent, or it's there's going to have to be a battle that's going to be fought another day, because I think that's how real life works. There is no full resolution. Like, something's slain, it crawls back to the shadows, and it maybe has another face next time, but it's still there. So and that happens a lot in horror, and I think that is kind of reflective of how I see life, is that you're kind of constantly having to battle the darkness, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great example. The scene where camera pans back to the lawn and Michael Myers is gone. A much more powerful ending than something definitive, really. And as a writer, I love the ambiguous ending, but I also, part of me loves the idea of keeping the door open to a crack on the off chance that I ever want to go back and write in that world, that I give myself an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And because there's those characters, you've spent 300 pages with them, or 200 pages, and years and months, and you want them to have more of a life to them, and they do, so but a couple of my novels, they ended very, On the Lips of Children was my first horror novel, and it ended very ambiguous. And if you look at the reviews, some people were upset. Other people was like, "No, tell me more." And this guy's being taken back, and you don't know if he's being taken to his family or to the evil feral twins that were eating people, kind of thing. And I don't even know, but so that's the kind of ambiguity that I often go for.
But I'll take the tell me more review every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I mean, if you get to the end of my story and you want to hear more, I succeeded.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be some payoff, obviously, but if it's if you're left hanging you're still invested and want to know what's on the next page, then right on, you've done your job.
I'm just thinking about also, because I'm of the, I guess if we're categorizing things we like, I really like war stories, and you could have a World War II or whatever the war is.
Yeah,
that shit obviously is a whole nother level. But when they get home, I mean, you throw in any variable, and that's just another good example. That chapter of the war's over, and you could have been this guy that got some really high ranking Taliban or whatever, and that's great, but then you're only so young, and you still got a lot of challenges ahead. So just kind of what I was thinking about when you guys were talking about that. And it's kind of interesting too, because if you have an end, if you say this is the absolute end, I mean, is it really that fun as a creator too? You know?
I'm thinking of the and we could talk all day on this, right? Is the Haunting of Hill House and the Red Room, and I talked with we may be getting to this later, but I talked to Jamie Flanagan at StokerCon, and
very cool.
Yeah, and that was one of the best parts of it. And my theory, I wanted them to they're still in the Red Room. At least I wanted to believe it. And we talked about it, a lot of things. He's like, no, that wasn't it. So I'm like, what do you know?
Did she say that too?
No. I promise I didn't say that.
He seems like a super nice guy.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and a lot of folks got a chance to talk to him because he made himself available and so very approachable. I was in a panel and they're like, and the writer of Midnight Mass. I'm like, what the hell? And approached him later and he was eager to talk. And in fact, one of the things he told me, he's like, well, why'd they nominate episode 6? Episode 5, I think, was a little more, elaborate. And so I'm talking to him like, shit, I better remember what episode 5 was. That was one with the AA meeting and the long scream at the end. And so I told him, that next year to win for that, right?
Man, that's so cool. I don't know, I don't know the history of like StokerCon or other scenarios like this, but it's really cool because I tell some of my friends that aren't writers, I just think it's really neat that we live in a time and age where, like, Mark, you talked to Jamie, right? And if I didn't know him, I could be like, well, I mean, he's at least talked to him, and that's really neat in the sense where, like, we are one person away from knowing everyone. Like, we all know someone that knows and is probably friends with Stephen King, be it Bev Vincent, Richard Chizmar, or a few others.
Yeah.
It's really cool because that's really powerful if you use it in the right way.
Social media has done some of that for sure, just because you get to know people before you see them, I think, and people are receptive often, of getting a shout out randomly from a fan or someone with an interest. So
sure. I would have been Mike wasn't there, was he? Mike Flanagan?
No. And Jimmy was real clear, like, listen, I only did a certain percentage of this, and Mike did that episode, and he wasn't. Mike has a picture out with him holding the.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I would. I'd be really interested to hear those two and how their upbringing was. I don't think.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead. No worries.
They were raised. I know they were raised Catholic, and
because
I talked about the whole Midnight Mass theory, right? Yeah. The whole Midnight Mass premise, I should say, not theory.
I understood.
Yeah. Okay.
That's that's really fascinating. So let's just dive into the StokerCon. Is there anything in particular that maybe for people that aren't aware what the StokerCon is, or maybe newer or aspiring writers or editors or anyone in this industry, is there anything that you would like to kind of throw out there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's my editorial. I wish they would never have changed it from the Horror Writers Convention to StokerCon, because I don't like that the focus is the awards. Mm-hmm. At least by the label, it would seem like it is. But now that I'm done saying that, I went to my first. I've only been to 3. No, I've been to 4. And I'm not necessarily the most social guy, but when you go there, no matter who you are, you see someone with their little lanyard on with HWA StokerCon on, and for me, it was like, we have something in common. I can just start rapping with them, or I saw them on a tweet, and I just started talking to random people and met so many people. I go in as a fan, as much as, like, I'm not there necessarily to make a big deal or meet an agent or that kind of crap. I just went to rub elbows with people and get pumped up for the material and get excited by it. So I met Jack Ketchum in Vegas, and
so cool.
That was amazing. Yeah. And I sat next to Jennifer McMahon. That was really neat. I would say definitely, like, there was times where I, like, look around, I'm like, I don't have no one to talk to. What the fuck? I'm just going to go to my room for a minute. You know what I mean? Or just go get a break, because, you just feel like awkward, because I didn't go there with anyone, but those moments are fewer and fewer. So
that's really excellent. Yeah, I would think so, especially now, because and we can talk. I would love to talk about anthologies later on, obviously with your trilogy too. But I would think that your name is kind of out there now too, because the trilogy that you have out is it's solid, man. It's really solid with the table of contents, with the quality, with the covers. It's I think people take notice of that. Brian, jump in, because I'm waffling.
I would actually love to hear you talk a little bit more. You mentioned being part of a few panels at StokerCon. Give us a little rundown of some of the topics and some points of interest that people might find interest in.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was on one on mental health and horror. It's called Hope in the Age of COVID, or Writing in the Age of COVID, and it was about how there was extra stressors on everybody. And it's the second time I've done it. And and about writing about mental health, and as horror writers, how we have a duty to be not to stigmatize, and how, I mean, horror is the perfect arena to write about mental health issues. But it's easy to fall into cliches and, just write some real stuff that makes the world not a more enlightened place, because I think horror can enlighten. So, and which works that really seem to do that. And then I was on a panel on settings. That was really interesting. I knew I was going to be with Jennifer McMahon, so I read her book really fast, Children on the Hill, and I got a chance to learn a little bit more about what brought that together. It was eerily similar to the setting, and I'm not going to say in quality because that would be arrogant as hell, but my novel, Goblin of Little Minds. It was a psychiatric unit, and it was with some experimentation with the belief that we can create mental illness and actually siphon out the best parts to a degree in eugenics. And so that was fascinating, sitting next to her and hearing about some of her settings. I shared the setting of, I don't know if you guys ever read, it's a novella, but it's also my short story collection called Body of Christ.
I haven't read that one.
Okay. It kind of freaked out the audience a little bit when I shared what was happening, and they're like, oh shit.
That's awesome.
And then a couple of people came up and like, where can we find it? And I just gave them the book. So I just want to be read, so that was interesting. And then I moderated my first panel, and check out this powerhouse panel that I was at. I was Brian Keene, Gabino Iglesias, Violet Castro, Genevieve Flynn, Jennifer McMahon, who we mentioned, and then me, and I'm supposed to moderate them. It's my first time. And so it was, so I tried to prepare and have all these questions ready, and it went fine. It was Brian just can bullshit with anybody. He's just a great guy, I think. And I even told him that. He's like, a lot of people call me an asshole. That's good to hear, Mark, or something. And I'm like, he just, multiple times. Last year, I talked with him a little bit, and in person, he's just, and I think that's how he lives his life. He's just a great guy and does a lot for the community. So, so that panel went well. We talked about characters, and I got through it. Some of my questions, I was like, what's that?
I said you survived somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I was in a panel before that watching, and I probably shouldn't say it because I'm disclosing something, but someone's like, "Don't moderate like this." The moderator was just talking the whole time, and so.
Totally get it. Yeah, you don't want to do that in podcasts either. So, Mark, no, just kidding. I was trying to set you up for something, but
it is the same thing, really.
I was trying to be a smart ass, but man, my brain's not firing on all.
No, it's very similar, except you get to edit your shit. I mean, I would have edited the hell out of my panels.
Nope, all live. Anything you throw out there.
Yeah.
We were talking about trying something live. We'd like to do that eventually, just to kind of make it more inclusive with if people have questions or whatever, get a live reaction. That'd be cool. But that's interesting. Brennan, I feel like I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
Not a question, but I would love to throw out there that, especially anybody who's read Hobgoblin and especially stuck around for the afterword, I think that just makes you such a clear-cut and good choice for participating in a panel on horror and mental health, and especially revolving around the subject of destigmatizing and, approaching it with respect. So, good for you for being on that panel. I think it's a great choice.
Well, thank you for saying so. I mean, there's a reason I write much better than I speak. That's for sure. So I even engaged proposed to my wife in a story. I wrote her like 5 chapters, like 1-page chapters, and we were on a trip, and I handed her one at a time. And the last one was, a proposal. So wow. I knew I'd buy it if I had to speak it. So
that's pretty awesome, though. Brennan, is there anything on StirCon that you want to cover? Can we jump into?
Oh, I'm ready to go to anthologies if you are.
Yeah.
All right, so
You go first.
Mark, you've got this lovely collection of anthologies with Orphans of Bliss having just come out, starting with Garden of Fiends, and a couple years ago you released Lullabies for Suffering, which is kind of a spiritual sequel, if not an actual sequel, because they all cover the same topics. So I would love to start out with how the first one came to be, and I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about addiction horror.
Oh, sure. How the first one came to be. Well, I had, it's hard to say without talking about, On the Lips of Children was published by a mid-level publisher, Books of the Dead, and I met some amazing people. The publisher was very cool. It was a great experience, but I realized with these publishers, you have to do half the work, if not all of it. Like he's like, I'm not publishing it till you get blurbs and you have to market. So then when I wrote Milk Blood, which was an addiction horror novel, and I'm like, do I give it back to him, or do I've learned something about publishing? So I published it on my own, and I really enjoyed it for a lot of reasons. I mean, like if it wasn't selling, do a freebie and then let people, pick it up, or do a sale price, or I could give out copies. And so I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the process, and I've learned so much about the formatting, the cover art. And I met Keelan through that. He did the cover art of my first self-published work. So then I don't know how the idea came to me, but and you'll see many times, John F.D. Taft, I ran the idea around him, and he gave me all the confidence. He's like, you can do this, you can do this. He gave me the kind of cliche, if your dreams don't scare you, it's not big enough. I asked him so many questions and still do. And I put out an open call for that one. I did invite a few people. I got, hundreds of submissions, as you can guess, as every open call does. I think I paid, not as well as I am eventually, but I paid fairly well. I asked Jack Ketchum personally, and I still remember getting his email, and I still look at it once in a while. He's like, how about this one, Alcohol and Pussycats? And he has a story in there called Returns.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. It was hard going through all those submissions. There was a lot of them that were on the fence. There's a couple that were like novella lengths that are published now that are doing well. I went out and read Jessica McHugh's novel, The Green Kangaroo, and that is an amazing novel if you've never read it. And it has a perfect breaking point for the sample to be in its own story in Garden of Fiends. Max Booth wrote something, and before I even got done reading it, I wrote him and said, dude, I want it. You know what I mean? It was with his typical, bizarre humor, body horror, really creative, really witty dialogue. Having Keelan write something for all three has been amazing. So, the open call was very hard. And you don't like to tell people that, you're not going to publish your story. I'm not good at that, and I wasn't made for that. And well, let me get to addiction horror. You asked about addiction horror. I mean, I think, they go together so natural. And you look at it, a lot of movies portray addiction, even as a, kind of a subcategory. Some of the Saw movies have it. The latest Evil Dead, with Maya and her heroin addiction. So, because I think it's hard to, within reality, portray the power of a subject that is so much bigger than reality, because the way you experience it is such a spiritual devastation, such a body transformation, and such hell you go to. How can you, I almost think of it more as dark magic realism than horror, because it's reality times 10. It's not fake. So
man, I've never heard that. That's cool. That's a really cool way to look at it, man.
Black magic realism.
Yeah, for real. Because I mean, what do drugs do to you? They take you out of this reality.
Yeah,
that's what magic does.
So how can you use reality to describe that?
Brennan, is there a particular book that you want to focus on with addiction horror, or was it just as a whole?
Well, let's you talked about the open call process with the first one and a lot of the stories and contributors. Let's move to Lullabies, which, as you know, is just one of my favorite anthologies ever. And I'm so curious about how you opted to make the move to having less stories in there, but having them take up a little bit more room. Because for me, that's kind of the biggest thing that worked.
Yeah, a few factors. One is I don't necessarily, I'm not good at writing short stories, so maybe I projected that other people didn't want to write them, but more so, I think that once I get into a short story, I don't want it to end. And I have a hard time when there's 20 stories, even 15 in an anthology, because it takes a while to orientate yourself to the world and get the conflict and, you know, who's Joe, who's Bob. And the next thing you know, the story's over sometimes. And so there's a little bit of a letdown. So I think the novelette is a good answer to that. Larger chunks of time to be spent inside the world, and you know, you create more conflict, create more character depth and plot and such. And as far as the invite only, it was there was people that were asking to be in them, and there still has, which is amazing. So in that sense, I still have to say no sometimes. And I think the success of Garden of Fiends, and this is something Taff called me, the whole make them say no. So, and you're like, who should I ask? So, you know, when I asked Gabino, I think him saying yes, he's, oh yeah, I love Garden of Fiends. And then I think, I remember when Carolyn Kepnes said yes, I literally ran around the room. So excited, like, what the hell? And I, you know, when I wrote her, I was like, hey, Gabino said yes, you know him, right? Wouldn't you like to be with him? Something like that. Her heart is in horror anyway, I think, as you know, she's been writing more.
Yeah,
horror.
definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
She's a fellow New Englander for Brian and I.
Yeah. I think she bounces back to LA once in a while too,
Mhm.
right? And getting Mercedes' story to finish that was such a, I felt, perfect closer. She's got her own
Oh,
style.
yes.
And,
Yeah, we love her, man.
yeah, the way that finished, and she has a lot of themes that run through a lot of her works, and it just, yeah.
I don't think anybody who's familiar with her work, it wouldn't surprise them to learn that story is just, it's beautiful heartbreak. I mean, you're right. That is the perfect closer for the anthology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And that was also, Taft went and did non-substance addiction, which a lot of people are asking about. And I didn't want that to be I think a little bit of spice, because I think you can be addicted to a lot of things. But and his was, you know, the obsession for self-harm and pain, and his was very cosmic. If you remember his story, what was it? The melting point of meat.
The melting point of meat. Yep.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned him a couple times, and it's worth giving him a shout out because he likes to pretend to be a grumpy old man, but he is one of the sweetest people that we have in the genre.
Yeah, he likes to mentor a lot of folks. He's the Uncle John, and I want the HWA to give him a lifetime award someday because he's written so much and done so much. So
I would love to see that.
He's one of the biggest direct influences on me. I mean, he's taken an hour to take a phone call with me just to talk about like anthologies, man, because I'm not, bullshitting him when I say Dark Stars for anthologies has had one of the biggest impressions on me. It's just, it's lights out, man. It's really excellent stuff. So I picked his brain about anthologies. Cool. Yeah, I accidentally stepped into that realm, and that's why that was after we had you scheduled, Jonathan Mayberry and a few others. So I'm really excited on top of all the other reasons to have you on. I'm curious, and this may sound kind of maybe weird because he just came out with one, but is there plans for any others in the future that you are comfortable talking about?
Well, the quick answer is no, but you know, in horror, nothing ever stays dead, right? We talked about that, right?
Yeah, man.
He came to me. So, yeah, I don't think so. But here's what I decided is because there's already folks that are interested, and but I would want the backing of another publisher, kind of the way Taft did Dark Stars. Like he edited it, he gathered the writers, he compiled it, but he's got the backbone of Tor behind it. You know, I just got me in my basement doing a tweet, and there's a big difference. And I've got, you know, a far reach, and I can publish in the same similar ways, but it's still it costs a lot, and I'm at the point though where as long as I break even, I'm okay. But it's a lot of work and a lot of money, of course, with all the people you contract with. So if there's a big publisher listening and they want the back, then but you know, it's like pregnancy. You got to forget the pain and frustration of it before you go at it again.
Well, I think you've proven it that you certainly can deliver very good stuff. Do you have any words for new or aspiring anthologists or editors? Because there's a lot of neat stuff to think about, such as invite only, open submission, slush pile, how you treat it, the order of the table of contents. Like, is there anything that you think is important or worth talking about?
Well, I think I mean, if you open call, you get some unique stuff and a wide variety of stuff, and you have the chance to catch somebody who I think there's something to be said for somebody who maybe hasn't been published a lot or published with certain names, and so they want to write something so badass that it gets accepted with these folks versus somebody who's like, yep, I'll be in it, and maybe don't feel that, you know, that same eye of the tiger to shoot out as good as stuff. So, or, you know, their best stuff. So you might get with a little more enthusiasm, but with open call, I got some weird ass, like I had someone said, you have 2 hours to respond to this submission or someone else will take it.
Oh man.
That's what someone emailed. Or somebody would just literally, if I said nah, they would just shoot me another story and it wasn't even about addiction. Or, you know, folks that I gave feedback sometimes, but when you open your door up for a long conversation that it gets more difficult, and which sometimes, you know, you want to have that conversation because you're friends with them, but other times not. So, but I mean, I guess do what you're passionate about. And, you know, there's that whole saying, write the book you want to read, create the anthology you'd want to read. And I liked, like Brendan said, longer works typically, meaning longer, you know, pages and word count versus shorter. And so that's kind of what I went with. And it's a topic where, like, I couldn't edit some of these folks in terms of some of their style, but I mean, I could, but I could add more to them through shining up the addiction parts. So there's a lot of stuff that it might be a couple sentences, but I modified it to, like, you know, this is what this drug will do, or at this point, this person would probably be experiencing this. And it was great working with the authors on that. And that's what helped create some of the work, is some of my addiction history, because I think we all have things that special knowledge that nobody else would know, and, you know, write what you know, anthologize what you know, or are passionate about. So that would be the other part. That's my daughter. She's on the way home. So
Tell her to be safe and not text and drive. Damn it.
Yeah. Well, I should get mine. So lastly, I think I made a more concerted effort with Orphans of Bliss to be more diverse. And I did go up to 10 authors. But I realized, you know, that there was a more mixed gender in the second book, but it was still not enough even. And so I purposely reached out to, there's a lot of people I reached out to that didn't agree, but they at least said, you know, no. But, you know, you look at the table of contents, there's a lot more diversity there. I didn't have to keep, but I wanted to keep Keelan as a starter because, I don't know, the continuity there I just love, and they're all from the same universe. Taff I wanted to have, and Gabino was in the second one, now in the third one, but Cassandra Kaw, who prose was amazing. As soon as I read Black and Teeth, I wrote her, and S.A. Cosby, when he said yes, that was my probably run around the living room, oh my God, moment.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but back to your question. Anthologize what you're passionate about and what you know. I think is the big thing, and it's going to cost time and money, but it's a lot of fun.
Do you have a lot of focus on the last story or the first one? I know we talked about Keelan being in the first one for them, but is there a lot of focus on what will end the anthology?
I do think of it a lot. And for example, I almost had Taft's story ending Lullabies just because it was a cosmic compilation of all horrors. And I think Mercedes' last line and the melancholy way it ended was so perfect. Ketchum's return from the dead, the whole moment was so perfect for the ending story. I usually folks like to have the big powerhouse names at the front or the end. You know what I mean? Some of that is just because, hey, if you want to read, Keelan Patrick Burke or S.A. Cosby, you got to read to the last story. So, but I decided to trump that and put me in the end because, and I just felt like if this is my last anthology, it's definitely not the best work in there, but I figure I'll try to end it off. And if you've read the story, it kind of fits with the chronicity of addiction and how it will keep going on. You want to say hello? The daughter has entered the chat.
Sure. Hey, wouldn't be the first daughter in, man. Matt Corley and his.
No, it's not live.
Oh, I'm scared.
Just say hi.
How's it going?
Hey.
Your dad's awesome.
As far as Orphans of Bliss, you covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about in compiling the table of contents. I think it is really cool that you got S.A. Cosby in there because the world at large knows him as, a thriller writer, a crime writer. And he is one of us. He is a big horror guy. And it was cool to see him, practice those chops and throw a story in there. I really enjoyed that. Yep.
I just got it too. Yep. And his is one of the more horrorish of all of them, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think if you're listening, he talked about how, he wrote he wrote a werewolf novel when he was little, one of his first, not novel, but a story. Excuse me, that was like Faulkner, wasn't it? I wrote a werewolf novel, but yeah, he loves horror, and he was at AuthorCon. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to meet him, but I want to make sure to mention Krista's story because that one just blew my mind. And I was so glad that I'm able to contact her as soon as I finished reading it. I'm like, what the hell did you just do? And, and a lot of folks are saying that that's one of their favorites. And, everybody has different tastes and they vary, but her story is amazing, I think. And I've talked to her a lot about addiction horror throughout the years. And she had another work about heroin handcuffs and what was it called? Something different than that. But
damn, that sounds cool.
Yeah, she did an amazing job.
She is a very underrated, in my opinion, short story writer. I have not seen a ton of people talk about her collection. I believe it's Something Borrowed, Something Blood Soaked, but everybody who does has only the best things to say.
Yeah, she's great to talk to. And, someday, she's probably 15 years younger. I'll pass on the addiction horror, to her. She'll take over.
That's excellent.
She knows the subject really well.
Did you get any shit for having your own story in this anthology?
Mostly from myself, but you know what I mean. Like I've seen a lot of people say, "What the hell? Why do people put their own self into their anthology?" But I do realize that I don't know that I've been able to be in an anthology with some of these names. And if other folks, thought my work wasn't up to it, I would definitely have looked at it. In fact, I mentioned a Taft. I said I should probably not be in the next one. He's like, no. I invite all these cool authors and stick my name next to them. But
yeah.
But
what though? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, before I wait.
I was going to say, you mentioned earlier, you write the book that you want to read, or in this case, you edit the anthology that you want to read. And if it's something that, you want to exist and you feel strongly that you know about this and you can tell that story, then I don't see any problem whatsoever with including your story. You have an authoritative voice on the matter and you have something to say. It's why should your story belong in this anthology any less just because you're compiling the list of authors that is coming together?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two kind of thing. And so I could, have some verity behind it. And I also think that, I had either a minor or at least a little bit of a influence on all the stories, editing them, but without editing out the voice or anything like that. So I was already in the anthology if I put my own story in there or not. Right. So, and I think, if I had to rate my own stories, I think Lizard from Lullabies is a better work than My Soul's Bliss, which is a better work than Garden of Fiends. So, which was the lead story in Garden of Fiends. It was my short story. But that Garden of Fiends story, somebody made a podcast out of it, like a Chilling Tales, and they did it over 6 episodes, and it's really cool.
Shit.
If you look on YouTube. Yeah.
Wow.
If you look on YouTube, Garden of Fiends, and they tell it in a bunch of different.
That's
really
cool. That's super cool, man. That's someone putting their hard work into something you created. That's special.
Yeah, they put sound effects on it, and it was pretty neat.
It's amazing, man. I want to have that in the show notes. Hey, before I forget, Joe Lansdale is someone that I wanted his advice too. He's edited, for those that don't know, he's an anthologist as well. He's edited quite a bit. And he said a lot of, as he always does, he has a lot of wisdom. But one thing that stuck out the most was this. Whether you're doing, you or any other editor, whether your intent's malicious or not, even then you still have a right because you're the editor. And he said at the end of the day, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, you're the editor. It's up to you. It's whatever you want. And I thought that was really great. Because I'm in my own anthology. It's a super specific reason why the anthology was created. My story was sold before I was an editor because I kind of got myself that gig. But the point being is I got some guff for that. And then I talked to Joe and he said that. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you put yourself out there for all sorts of criticism when you put yourself out there, and you got to be okay with it. And you get on social media and you're like, are they talking about me? And I've never regretted not engaging. You know what I mean? And you get criticism or you get it directly. Yeah. So I think, what Joe isn't Joe also the one who said, right, like everyone is dead.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that.
It's amazing.
And I thought that's what you were going to say when you were talking about his quote. But I mean, which I think relates to what you're saying is don't worry about pissing people off. They're going to be pissed off, but pretend that they won't be, or criticize you for whatever. So,
I don't know if you saw my post today, man, but there was this one. I don't look at reviews for this show really ever anymore. I don't know why I did today, but I looked and I had a 2-star rating, and I'm not going to read it. It's super long. It's ranty. Okay, so for people that haven't, it's really funny. It's on Apple Podcasts. I think you should check it out if you're looking for a laugh. The guy might even be listening to this, which would be funny too. But basically, he said that we have a bunch of liberals that's, and we don't go on like a milk crate. Like there are episodes, and we have said. I mean, I personally have said fuck Trump, but because I get riled up.
You said it again.
Oh no! Okay, I lost another hardcore fan. But the whole thing is he kind of made it seem like this show is just super hard leaning to the left, and
woke, right?
I'm not
woke.
We're not extreme on either side, but we're like most artists, liberal thinking. We want most people to have good things and stuff. So
in general, horror writers are, but yeah.
But
I saw that quote, and then I thought, well, I'm going to start with my, my gun theory. You know what I mean? But
it was pretty funny because it went from one thing to another, and the whole point is when I showed Brennan, we were laughing about it, and basically, like you said, you're in a public eye. It's not a big one, but
yeah,
you don't know who's listening, and it's kind of weird sometimes when some guys coming at you being like, I liked your show, motherfucker, and there's some authors that I like, but screw them, and this is why, and here's a theory. It's like, oh, okay.
In the full interest of being petty, I hope we ruined that guy's week.
His name was Steve-O, and I was really hoping it wasn't the jackass Steve-O, although he was a jackass.
Yeah. Mark, one takeaway from something you said a couple minutes ago, I think is just so worth repeating. You said, I've never regretted not engaging. You'll never regret not engaging, just letting them shout into the void and be angry and miserable. So
I don't think I've been in any Twitter wars, but I've seen plenty. And so I just curse myself. I probably have one going on right now. Let me look and see if I'm being attacked. No, anyways.
Oh, thank goodness.
That'd be weird. It's definitely a weird scene. It's like the Wild West, but it's just everyone's mad about everything. Yeah. So, Brennan, still on anthologies, or do you want to go to the next topic?
I'm taking us to an extremely random topic. And Mark, if you don't have an answer for this, that's okay, but I have to ask you. So I know you are a huge Hamilton fan, and I'm so curious because, the storytelling there and the, repetition of themes, whether it be through music or other devices, is absolutely brilliant. There's no other word for it. And I'm wondering if watching that show as many times as you have has helped you in storytelling in any way, shape, or form.
I think it has. And it's funny, my daughter's beside me, she can hear me. And she's the one I've seen it with like 8 times over the last 6 years. I think it's such a passionate show about, like, Alexander himself was, I think, manic the way he wrote. You know what I mean? And if you hear him, he's constantly the song, why do you write like you're running out of time? He thinks he can solve any problem by writing, right? He thinks he can write his way out of hell, right? In the song Hurricane. And in fact, I studied that, and I was just tweeting this to Laurel Hightower about how she's like, can I write my way out of this hell? And I'm like, well, yeah, you can. Look what Hamilton did. He was in a small island in the Caribbean, and there was a big hurricane, and he wrote about it. And he wrote like a 1-page thing, and it's like this Lovecraftian horror thing, and it's brilliant. And a bunch of the islanders saw it, and they're like, oh my God, we got to get this kid to the mainland, or I don't know how the quote goes. And so they raised money, and they sent him to the colonies because they knew he was talented. And the whole show is about, or the whole message is about making good use of your time. And of course, he was a little bit megalomaniacal and because of it, was a little bit tragic and left his Eliza with the kids. But it definitely, just talking about it now pumped me up. See what you did?
I'm gonna finish this up and go watch it again.
Funny thing is, I've only watched it once on Disney, but we've seen it so many times. It just doesn't. I still love it, but it's not the same. We won the lottery a couple times, so we were sitting in second row, and chests are thumping from the cannons, and boom, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I would imagine that has to be an experience. I actually came into it. When it first became a sensation, X number of years ago, I just did not get around to checking it out. I've never been to a Broadway play anyway, so that wouldn't have helped me. But through teaching piano lessons, I ended up becoming very familiar and hearing all the songs 8 billion times. And I had so many students, vocal students especially, who would do these beautiful renditions. I'm like, I got to go check out the original, and I just got hooked. But like I said, the music is phenomenal, but the storytelling is just next level. It's really something.
the way that they introduced the main character at the beginning, and there's, the themes and the reoccurring themes, and yeah, it's awesome, I think.
All right, Patrick,
Yeah.
I'm done with the stage musicals. If you would like to take us somewhere else.
Talk about Les Mis next if you want.
Oh, perfect. How do you feel about Russell Crowe?
He needed to look more intimidating than he did.
I want to pick up one of Mark's questions or suggestions. I want to know why you love calling yourself a hobbyist.
A hobbyist. Well, it takes the pressure off of thinking I need to write enough to make a career out of writing. I also can write whatever I want. Like if I'm in a career, I got to worry about, not tweeting too political, not writing in my genre enough or in my brand enough. And it just keeps the passion there versus it make it into a business. Now, I would love to be able to write full time. Don't get me wrong. I totally would. I'd prefer that if I, could sell enough and wrote enough that folks bought it and supported the home. And I also want my work to look as good as the professionals. You know what I mean? Those, when I say professionals, those who work full time as a writer. I want people to what should I read? I don't want them to think I'm a less than, and so I try to write and only publish what is worthy of that. But saying hobbyist just makes it more fun, doesn't make it a drudgery, and write what you want. It just takes the pressure off a lot.
That makes
there
sense.
was a whole scandal years ago about somebody saying, well, you're just a hobbyist, and so I think I co-opted the term. Yeah.
Brennan, why don't you dive into the next thing?
Yeah, no, I was that's a great explanation, is just having the freedom to kind of be that, yes, it would be great to be a full-time writer. I would love to, not have to be out the door at 7 every morning, be able to come in here, sit and, just do what I write. But to be able to kind of focus hey, I would like to start a new novella and I don't have, 800 looming deadlines. And I don't have to, like you said, worry that the tweet I sent last night is too political and that my publisher is going to drop me, and that, it is kind of nice to remove that pressure, even if it's only just kind of a little coping technique almost. Just keep you at your best, I suppose.
I liken it to the guy who carves little wood carvings in his garage that sometimes looks as neat or as unique as you might find at a store, but he does it more for a hobby, and he might sell them, but he'll do it whether you buy them or not. So that's me, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to keep writing whether or not, no matter how many copies I sell. That's perfect.
Yeah, right on.
I mean, that's
All right.
Look, I'm just going to say this, though. I feel like that really dictates or indicates to me personally, I don't speak on Brent's behalf, it's going to be super clear. I think that's the difference between an actual writer and someone that just does it for fun. And that sounds like I'm poking fun at hobbyists or whatever, or maybe it does. But I really think that there are people, and I'm not knocking them, but I think there are people that kind of do it and see if it's for them, and it's not, and that's fine. But I forget what author said it. And I heard Brian Keith say this a lot on his podcast when it was up, which, by the way, check it out. Haven't talked about it in a while. Brian Keene with the Horror Show. Great stuff. But someone that he quoted saying if he had a stick and he was on an island, he'd still write. And it's because we have a drive. we have a necessity.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, just worth re-mentioning. So, Brennan, I stole away your thunder.
Nope, steal away. You want to lead us on?
Mark, what are you currently reading?
Oh my God, I've got my stack.
I put him on the spot. Damn it, Brennan.
Actually, I'm reading Josh Mellerman's new, who I'm so geeked as in Orphans, because I run into him here and there. And but here are some of my Stoker Con poll, and I started every single one of these.
What's Rabbits?
That was up for best first novel, I think.
That looks really fucking cool, man.
It's a mind twisty.
Good beginning. Yeah,
Jason
excellent.
These are the ones I've mostly dug into. See, I'm pretty unfocused, but this
Ghost Eaters.
I on a panel with her. She's fantastic.
Yep.
Katrina Monroe. And this one starts off with a bunch of people taking acid in a graveyard.
Nice.
That's awesome, man. I just heard a new podcast. Like it's only 2 episodes deep. Brennan, please help me out. Or actually,
Tomes of Terror,
Tomes
Terror Tomes, or something like that.
You know what? Who's the host? Here it is. Terrifying Tomes of Terror. Yeah, so they had Clay on there for his second episode. And you know what's funny is mainly you were talking about Josh Mallerman, and man, if his energy and cadence of speech wasn't just like a cousin of Josh, I don't know who's this. He actually seems like a really cool guy.
I sat next to him at the there was a mass signing and got a chance to talk to him a couple times. And he was a cool guy. And he's like, and he told me he read part of Garden of Fiends as research, as part of, he read a bunch of addiction books, but for this book. So I have wrote to him a couple times what a cool start of the book it is. Apparently it gets pretty grim, but that's fine.
I just had that sounds like an amazing book, by the way. I do want to check it out after hearing.
Yeah, Ghost Eaters. Fast read too, because I think, man, we all have so much to read. It's hard when they have a big 500-pager.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I agree. Worth repeating though. Terrifying Tones of Terror. It's an excellent podcast. You know, I don't think we do enough shout outs to other podcasts besides This Is Horror. Fuck you, Michael. I know you're listening. I love that guy. I love that guy so much. By the way, I'm totally kidding. I love Michael and Bob with all my heart. But I just want to read a text because I snuck a screenshot of us three and I sent it to Mercedes. And I just said that we just mentioned you and good stuff. And she said, that makes me so happy. I love you guys. And really like Mark. I love that story. So that's good stuff, man.
Well, yeah, it is a great story. It was, and it's so fitting. So,
Brennan, what you reading, man?
Before I hit that, 2 things I want to throw out. Number one, you had mentioned before that we don't shout out podcasts enough. And, you know, I think it's worth throwing out there that, you know, we always talk about how other writers are not the competition. It's how important it is to build each other up. And I think that's true of podcasts too, just because we can't interview everybody. There are so many great writers out there, exactly. And we'd love to talk to them all, but our wives would murder us in our sleep for booking every night. And not only that, but, you know, we will, when we get a chance to have a conversation with somebody, we will always, you know, listen to other episodes they have on other podcasts, because there's always interesting angles that questions can come from. It's never, you know, it's never the same. You might get to talk about something on here and have a completely and utterly different conversation on This Is Horror, on Ross Jeffrey's channel, on Brad Proctor and The World of Paper Cuts. That's the one. So yeah, I think that's really cool to shout out. I am reading Marla by Jonathan Jans. That's
nice.
Earthling's Halloween book for this year. And that, you know, I don't think the Zoom screen does
love
justice,
that cover.
It's stunning, man. The use of color is really, really something. And it's Jans. He doesn't miss. I mean, it's a really excellent story. It's a little bit of weird happenings in a small town. Something that he tends to do pretty well, especially if you read Children of the Dark and can't wait for Children of the Dark 2. I think that a lot of people are going to pick that up from Earthling and be pretty psyched. And I am also reading, speaking of 500-page books that take a long time, The Force by Don Winslow, because I heard it was very reminiscent of The Shield, which is my favorite TV show of all time. And
did not know that.
Hits those notes.
It's
Pat, what about you?
Yeah, so I just want to talk about Winslow super quick. So when I went to his sign-in a few weeks ago, and I got my arc. I asked him because I know like Lansdale won't sign arcs because people try selling for stupid amounts of money, and he said that publicly somewhere. I don't remember where, but I asked Don, and he said sure. So I had it signed to my dad because he's super into thrillers, crimes, and all that. And they you guys know this, but I don't think we talked about it on air. They just got to my house today, and he dove into it, and he's like, "This is great stuff. I'm gonna read this guy more now." And I'm like, "Yeah, I knew you'd like it. It's so cool to hear that because it's based on the Iliad and Homer and all the Greek stories." Yeah, but he said it's pretty much like that is the blueprint. Only it's focusing on the Italian versus Irish mafia. In the 1980s in New England because he grew up in Providence in the 80s, and I just thought that was really neat. But okay, what I'm reading, few things. Audiobook I got. It's called The Frozen Hours by Jeff Shara. I probably talk about this a lot now more than in the beginning of the show, but I'm really into war books. And he's pretty damn good. It's about the Korean War when the Marines had the biggest embarrassment in the first year of the war, and it was one of the coldest battles in that part of Asia in like I think it was 50 or 100 years. But yeah, the Marines got super fucking ambushed by the Chinese that were helping the Koreans, and yeah, we got our asses whooped big time. L.M. Labat, she has her second book coming out in a series, vampire series, where it's set in Europe. The Sanguinarian Schwarzwald, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that German word right, but I thought I was tired of vampire books a few years ago, and then I read a few, like Vic LeMay's series, and it's just, it's amazing. Like we were talking about werewolf stories, like Malloran, he wrote that excellent one that won the Stoker last year. It's
Last
just
Confirmation or something. Yeah.
yeah. When you think you've read it all, you really haven't, and it's just
incredible.
And then speaking of werewolves, this is not I didn't do this on purpose, but we're having Janine Pipe on. It'll be 2 episodes from now, but we're talking to her next weekend. And she wrote this wonderful book called Sausages, The Making of Dog Soldiers. And we're really excited to talk about that. So we're diving into that book too. And, you want to talk about amazing people. She is just the embodiment of cheerleading in a good heart. So worth mentioning, Janine Pipe. Check her out.
Yes. You feel the positive vibes coming out.
For sure. Mark, where can people follow you?
Well, I am on Twitter. That's probably my main source. And I have a webpage, wickedrunpress.com. Instagram, which I'm not very good at using, but I'm getting better. Or I can just follow me, come on over to Michigan, and I'll say hi.
Man, you don't know who listens to the show. I just found out recently. Don't say that.
Where I live.
Yeah.
Steve-O's on his way.
Oh, God. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, other than you guys do such a great job, and you must have a real passion and love to do this so much, and to get the kind of folks you get on. That speaks to what a great job you're doing, and it's part of your heart. And thanks for having me, and I will see you out there somewhere in the world at the next convention or the next post or whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go first. I'm going to cut Bernie in line. I am super appreciative that we think very highly of you. Normally, I don't do this. I used to talk about how we got a shop, but I'll do it right now. We have a shop. We also have a website. It's called Dead Headspace. I actually got coffee mugs. It's got my face. You know what, man? I've thought of this. People must think I'm super egotistical because I got my face on it, but that was before Brennan and I started talking, and before I knew that he would want to do this, because I just said I wanted to do a podcast to get my name out there, kind of do something different. Well, I thought it was just me, and then Brennan joined on after I commissioned Todd Kiesland.
Would you like me to leave?
No, you make me so much better.
Brennan
My-
can't love Phil, right?
Brennan's my better half. We also
Go
have
to
bookmarks.
deadheadspace.com. Find a bookmark.
No, but these are neat. They're metal bookmarks, and they got a little clip. And then I just wanted to show one more because, like I said, I don't do this shit anymore. Notebooks too, if you're into that. If not, whatever. Doesn't matter. All right, Brennan, final thoughts.
Mark, it's been a long time coming, and we're so happy that you were able to join us tonight. I feel so strongly about these anthologies. I think they're really great, and with Orphans of Bliss out, I hope anybody who hasn't picked it up already will grab a copy and blast through it because it's got some really, really good stories in it.
Great. Thank you, Brennan. I appreciate it. And congrats on the new home for Slattery Falls, right?
Oh, thank you. Yep.
I think that's really
Out again in the world.
Second one's gonna be out there.
Yeah,
soon,
that'll be
too.
out in November
That's awesome.
or December. Haven't decided yet.
Good month for everything.
Next episode will be a spotlight episode. That is our 12th. It's going to be with Hope Madden. She's a filmmaker, writer. She has a book that just came out with Off Limits Press. So she's going to be doing a reading from that. Spotlight episodes, for those that don't know, it's a mini episode where we take the time to have a reading and a Q&A on that piece. Listeners/viewers, thank you so much for joining us again. You have many choices in podcasts. Appreciate you stopping by. I'm just making shit up as I go now.